Welcome to List of, where we dive into the fascinating, the quirky, and the downright unbelievable moments that shape our world. Today we're talking about history's biggest what-ifs, those razor-thin margins, those fortunate misfortunes, those moments where the entire tapestry of human civilization hung by the flimsiest of threads, teetering on the brink of a completely different reality. Think about it, just one tiny change, one different decision, one misplaced briefcase. And you might be living in a very different world right now. Let's explore some of these extraordinary near misses. First up, a moment that nearly plunged us all into nuclear winter. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Tensions were stratospheric. American spy planes spotted Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, and the world held its breath. But it was under the waves and the cramped confines of a Soviet submarine, B-59, that the real nail-biting moment happened. American destroyers were dropping depth charges, signaling for the sub to surface. The captain, believing war had already broken out, was ready to launch a nuclear torpedo. Protocol required agreement from 3 senior officers, but crucially, one man, Vasily Arkhipov, refused to give his consent. He argued for surfacing, for waiting for orders. His calm insistence in the terrifying chaos saved us all. Imagine, one rational dude in a tin can underwater prevented World War III. Talk about a bad day at the office or a monumental save. Next, a change of scenery and centuries to the Battle of Hastings in 1066. This wasn't just a skirmish. It was the birth of modern England as we know it. Harold Godwinson, the English king, had just fought off a Viking invasion, then marched his exhausted army south to face William the Conqueror. For most of the day, Harold's shield wall held firm. The Normans were struggling, nearly broken. Legend has it, William's forces feigned retreat, luring the English downhill, breaking their defensive formation. And then, the final, brutal twist. King Harold himself was struck down, famously, by an arrow to the eye. If that arrow had missed, if the shield wall hadn't crumbled, if Harold had just ducked, English history, language, and culture would be utterly unrecognizable. Who knew a stray arrow could be such an architectural marvel of destiny? Our next stop takes us to Sarajevo in 1914, and the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. This event lit the fuse for World War I, but it nearly didn't happen. The initial assassination attempt that morning involved a hand grenade, which missed the Archduke's car and injured others. After this, Ferdinand decided to visit the injured in the hospital. His driver, unfortunately, took a wrong turn down Franz Joseph Street, right into the path of Gavrilo Princip, one of the original assassins who had, by sheer coincidence, popped out of a sandwich shop for a breath of fresh air. Princip seized the moment, firing 2 shots. The most impactful wrong turn in history, perhaps. If only Google Maps had existed back then, maybe the world gets an extra few peaceful years. Fast forward to the year 2000 and the US presidential election. This wasn't a battle of armies, but of ballots, specifically hanging chads. The election between George W. Bush and Al Gore came down to Florida, with a margin so razor-thin it triggered a mandatory recount. Weeks of legal battles ensued, focusing on improperly punched ballots and confusing butterfly designs. The Supreme Court ultimately halted the recount, effectively handing the presidency to Bush. Imagine if just a few hundred more Floridians had punched their chads cleanly, or if the ballot design had been unambiguous. The entire landscape of the 21st century US and global politics could have pivoted on a literal paper-thin difference. Who knew office supplies held such power? Let's journey back to 1453 and the fall of Constantinople. For over 1,000 years, this magnificent city was the bedrock of the Byzantine Empire, a Christian bulwark in the east. But as the Ottoman Empire grew, its walls were put under siege. The city was surrounded, battered by cannons, but still, its defenders held firm. The critical moment, legend says, came with a tiny, overlooked detail. A small postern gate, Kirka Porta, was accidentally left unlocked or ajar. A handful of Ottoman soldiers slipped through, sowing panic and opening the main gates. This small oversight, this forgotten lock, spelled the end of an empire and forever changed the geopolitical map of Europe and the Middle East. It's like forgetting to lock your back door, only instead of a missing bicycle, it's the collapse of an entire civilization. Our next almost moment features one of history's most famous military minds. Napoleon Bonaparte at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Napoleon, having briefly escaped exile, was making a last-ditch attempt to reclaim his empire. The battle itself was a brutal, hard-fought affair, and for much of the day it was anyone's game. Napoleon's victory looked plausible, but then the Prussians under General Blücher arrived on the battlefield, crucially reinforcing the Allied lines. Without Blücher's timely arrival, which was itself uncertain due to muddy roads and an earlier defeat, Wellington might have been overwhelmed, and Napoleon could well have continued his reign, completely rewriting the map of Europe. One general's stubborn determination to march through mud saved the day. Then there's the assassination attempt on Hitler during the July 20th plot in 1944. As World War II raged, a group of disillusioned German officers attempted to kill Hitler at his Wolfslehr headquarters. Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg placed a briefcase bomb near Hitler during a meeting. The explosion was devastating, but Hitler survived with only minor injuries. Why? Just before the explosion, the briefcase was apparently moved by another officer. Probably because it was obstructing his view of a map, placing it behind a heavy, thick wooden table leg. That simple, seemingly innocuous act of moving a bag literally deflected the course of history. A table leg, the unsung hero of villainy, or the ultimate party pooper, depending on your perspective. Finally, a moment that soared above the Earth, the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. This was a triumph of human ingenuity, but it was fraught with peril. During the descent, the lunar module's computer triggered multiple 1202 and 1201 alarms, indicating a potential overload. Mission Control, after quick assessment, gave the go. Then, as they neared the surface, Neil Armstrong realized they were headed for a boulder-strewn crater. He had to take manual control, flying past the designated landing zone, searching for a safe spot. They landed with mere seconds of fuel left. Imagine if the alarms hadn't been resolved, if Armstrong couldn't find a clear spot, or if they just ran out of gas a few feet too high. The dream of space exploration could have been set back decades. Houston, we have a software glitch and we might crash on the moon. Talk about peak anxiety. These moments serve as a powerful reminder. History is not a foregone conclusion. It's a chaotic, beautiful, often absurd ballet of chance, choice, and sheer human will. Every single one of us, through our decisions and actions, however small, is constantly shaping the future. You never know when your own Vasily Arkhipov moment might arise. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey through history's near misses. If you enjoyed discovering these pivotal moments, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to List of for more incredible stories, and let us know in the comments below which historical near miss you find most astonishing. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a list.